Oh, I just remembered. I'm sweating pretty bad today, but I managed to make it just down the block. I got to pick up dinner and stuff. I want to give you a little view of the anger of this whole thing, what I saw. As the whole thing proceeded in this Social Security thing, at one point, one of the responses, and I did not believe it, when you hear me say insufficient work history, this is what they wrote me. When I got the last year, it was the back injury got so bad in my last year at work, I finally had no choice and I was on injury leave. Now, I don't like injury leave because it puts you out of like your routine. And some people don't mind it, like they'd be on injury leave for a lot of years, fire department. But it put me out of my routine. That's why some days I was going to go to work even though it was really bad, because I don't like just sitting around. One of the responses, after going through all this with them, and they almost tricked me, but one of the responses was, you were unemployed at the time of your injury. And I showed it to a few people. I said, what do they mean by this? What they meant was, of course, I had the injury, the last one, it was just the back was terrible, but it was traced back to earlier time. There was like history of that when you first injure your back, and then over the years. Well, of course, when you get injured, you go on injury leave. They counted me as unemployed. And I thought it was a mistake. I said, what do you mean I'm not covered because I was not working? That was their official response to me. You had to actually have been still working, meaning the injury took place, and you immediately filled out the application for a disability during the injury. And if you went on injury leave the next day, which I did, and you waited a few months to apply, you are now officially unemployed. I knew it was a tremendous game, and it was an offense to me that they did that. At one point, they began, and this is what they did with some of the guys here. At one point, they, in the correspondence, but I realized they lied to me in this, but they said, you have to meet, there's for people that are on disability their whole life and have no work history, there's a certain amount of, you can't have a net worth of a certain amount. A lot of my friends are in this situation, and maybe you could work, but you can't make a certain amount of money. So at one point they basically said I had to be divorced because my wife makes money. My income's very low. I also had to get rid of all the stuff. The house could not be in my name and all these things. And then there was like a process of me thinking, geez, I'm going to have to. But then they were actually lying to me. That's for people without credits in the system. So they kind of went down that road, and it showed me that they're a scam. That's what that showed me. And of course I would catch that along the way and then write a letter back and get no response. And it showed me it's a scam. But with the insufficient work history, when they basically said you were unemployed at the time of the injury, because the injury happened, of course I was on injury leave, 25 years as a first responder, and they said you were unemployed at the time of the injury. That injury was a fire department injury. There's no challenge about that, because I was on workman's comp for a few months. And I actually wrote them back during this thing. I said, what do you mean? And that's what they meant. They basically said you had to have filled it out the day the last injury there, maybe at the firehouse, you couldn't get up before you left duty. They meant that. And I thought they were an absolute joke.